Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe to catch all our chess action. This is a book move. The opening is called King's Pawn Game.
This is a book move. The opening is called Pirc Defense.
Pawn to d4.
Knight to f6.
Developing the knight to a strong central square, supporting the pawn on pawn to e4 and preparing to control the pawn to d5 square, while also eyeing the f7 pawn and potentially putting pressure on black's position.
Pawn to e5 is best. This offers a trade.
Knight from file g to e2.
Bishop to e7.
Pawn to g3.
Pawn to c6 is the best move.
Preparing to develop the queenside pieces and controlling the pawn to f4 square, bishop to g2 is a solid move that also pins the knight on d4, making it harder for black to play, then c6.
Pawn captures on d4 is good. This is a trade. Kingside castle is best.
Queen captures on d4.
Developing the knight to a strong central square, supporting the pawn on pawn to d4 and preparing to control the pawn to d5 square, while also eyeing the pawn to d4 pawn and potentially putting pressure on black's position.
Queen to d1 is best. This defends a pawn on c2.
Kingside castle is the best move.
Pawn to h3.
Preparing to develop the queenside pawns and controlling the pawn to d5 square, while also supporting the pawn on pawn to e5 and putting pressure on black's position.
Casting kingside to connect rooks, safeguard the king, and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queenside.
Knight to e5.
Pawn to f4.
Pawn to c6.
Pawn to b3.
Queen to f5.
Pawn to f4 is the best move.
Queen to c7 is best. This defends a pawn on b7.
Bishop to e3 is the best move.
Preparing to develop the queenside pieces and putting pressure on black's position, rook from file f to e8 supports the pawn on pawn to e4 and prepares to potentially play d5, attacking black's pawn on d6.
Preparing to develop the kingside pieces and control the pawn to d5 square, pawn to f4 also pins the knight on d6, creating a potential weakness on the queenside.
Knight to g6 is best.
Queen to d3.
Pawn to h5 is excellent. Rook from file to d8 is best. This develops a rook.
Rook from file to d1 is excellent. This develops a rook. Bishop to d4 is best.
Preparing to develop the queenside pawns and potentially create a passed pawn on the queenside, while also supporting the central pawns and preparing to potentially play d5. This move also slightly weakens the kingside pawn structure.
I played bishop to d4 to challenge Malik's pawn structure and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queenside. The move also pins his knight on c6, making it difficult for him to maneuver.
Rook from file to d8.
Queen to e3 is the best move.
Queen to c8 is the best move.
Queen to f3 is good. Bishop to b6 is best. This attacks the queen.
I played pawn to b5 to challenge Malik's pawn structure and create space for my pieces to develop. The pin on the knight on pawn to c6 and the potential fork on the queen on pawn to c7 make it a strong move to gain a strategic advantage.
Bishop captures on f6.
Bishop captures on f6 is the best move.
Queen captures on h5 pins the black king on h5, creating a potential weakness. This move also opens up the f-file for the rook to potentially use, putting pressure in the black position.
I played pawn to b4 to challenge black's control of the queenside and prepared to potentially create a passed pawn on the queenside. This move also pins black's knight on c6, making it difficult for them to attack my position.
Knight to b1 is good. Pawn to e5 is best. This offers a trade. This attacks the bishop.
I played pawn to d5 to challenge black's central control and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queenside. This move also pins black's knight on c6, making it harder for them to develop their pieces.
Knight to d2 is the best move.
Queen to b6 check pins the knight on g4, forcing Malik to respond to the check, while also putting pressure on the kingside pawns, creating a potential weakness.
King to h2 is a prophylactic move to prevent black's potential counterplay on the kingside, specifically the g5 push, which could have led to a weakened kingside pawn structure and potential weaknesses on the kingside.
Queen to e3 is a strong move, attacking black's pawn on pawn to d6 and preparing to develop the rest of the pieces. It also pins black's knight on f6, gaining a strategic advantage.
Queen to f3.
Queen captures on f3 is the best move.
Pawn to e5.
Bishop captures on e5 is an accuracy. The bishop can be captured by a low-value piece. The opponent can play s7. Bishop to d8 is best.
Pawn captures on e5.
Knight captures on e5 is best. This defends a bishop on d7. This attacks the queen.
Queen to f4.
Queen captures on c2.
I played knight to d4 to attack black's pawn on d5, creating a potential pin on black's knight on c6. This move also prepares to develop the rest of my pieces and control the center of the board.
Queen to g6.
Knight from rank 2 to f3 is excellent. This offers a trade. Rook from file d to e1 is best. By placing the rook on an open file, it controls important columns.
Pawn to f6 is best.
Rook from file d to e1.
Queen to h5 is the best move.
Queen to d2 is excellent. Queen to c1 is best.
Pawn to a5.
Knight captures on e5.
Pawn captures on e5.
I played pawn to g4 to challenge black's pawn structure and create space for my pieces to develop. By opening up the king side, I aim to put pressure on black's position and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queen side.
Queen to g6 is best.
Attacking the knight on s6, preparing to develop the rest of the pieces and putting pressure on black's position, while also eyeing the pawn on f5, which is somewhat weakened by the previous moves.
Rook from file b to d8 is excellent. This defends a bishop on d7. Bishop captures on f5 is best. This is a trade.
Queen to f2, pinning the knight on g4, preparing to launch a potential attack on the king side, while also supporting the pawn storm on the queen side.
Bishop captures on f5 is best. This is a trade.
Queen captures on f5 is best. This attacks the queen. This move gains a tempo.
Queen captures on f5 is the best move.
Forced check on black's king, attacking the pawn on pawn to e5 and preparing to potentially create a passed pawn on the f-file. This move also puts pressure on black's position, making it difficult for them to defend against the impending attack.
King to h8 is the best move.
Rook to f5 is best. This creates a checkmate threat.
Rook to e6.
Rook to h5 check is best.
Rook to h6 is best. This offers a trade. This blocks a check to the king with a piece.
Rook captures on h6 check is the best move.
Pawn to e4 check is the best move.
Qx-h5 plus pins the black king on h5, forcing Malik to respond to the check, while also putting pressure on the black pawn on h6, creating a potential weakness.
I played king to g8 to prevent a potential pin on my king by the bishop on g12, while also supporting the pawn on pawn to e5 and preparing to launch a kingside attack.
Pawn to g6. The game is over. White wins.